The other injury that, well, we're talking about injuries this morning. We're in, today's Wednesday, August 24th, 2016, and I'm talking about type of injuries that you can suffer when riding a bike. The other injury is related to a fall on a bike where you try to catch yourself, brace yourself falling, or break your fall by putting down your arm. This is very common. This is a very common injury. You're trying to catch yourself as you fall. You put down your hand. What very often happens is you break your collarbone. That's the bone up above your shoulder, side of your neck. And usually when they snap, they almost break right through the skin. So that's a pretty nasty break. But I also understand it's one of those injuries that you do recover from fairly quickly, regardless of how painful it might be. And the other related injury to that, when you put your hand down to break your fall, is your wrist and the bones in your wrist that could be fractured or snapped or broken, or at a minimum, you might even sprain your wrist when you fall over. So that's those two items there are related to falls. Now, as it turns out, two people this season who I follow from Strava both had broken collarbones as a result of a crash. One woman, I believe she's in England, she was in a race, and here again, she's speeding, she's following another guy. They were doing, according to her account of it, something like 40 miles an hour coming down the hill. Guy in front of her lost it after he hit a pothole and took her out, and she broke her collarbone. Probably 6 weeks ago, I'm guessing. And I think she's already riding again. So, you know, you do recover from it. You do recover fairly fast from it. But nonetheless, who the hell wants to break their collarbone? Another person I know who's in Florida, she also had a similar fall. She apparently ran out of road, I guess is the best way I can explain it. Ran out of shoulder, ended up hitting the curb, and just as I described it, she broke her fall by putting her arm down. Well, she didn't quite break her collarbone, but she actually needs surgery on her shoulder, somewhere in the area of the rotator cusp. But so that's two people right there who have fallen and gotten hurt, who have suffered their injury as a result of putting down their arm to break the fall. The guy was cutting that corner a little short. Today is August 24th, 2016. It's a Wednesday. We're talking about injuries that you can suffer on as a result of riding your bike and getting in a crash or some other unfortunate event that causes you to go down. And I discussed a little bit about head injuries and injuries that you typically suffer when falling and you try to break your fall by putting down your arm. As I mentioned, a couple people that I know through Strava have suffered these injuries this summer already, which surprises the hell out of me. I don't follow all that many people, and the percentage of people getting hurt is somewhat alarming. There are two more other kinds of injuries that, of course, I never knew about until I started looking into this and finding out people who would suffer them. I had no idea that it was possible these kind of injuries could be sustained as a result of crashing on a bike. But two people who I follow on Strava both have got fractured hips And now again, this is a very typical injury, which surprises the hell out of me, because I'm just thinking, boy, your pelvic bone, that's a big bone. How the hell do you fracture something like that? Well, in fact, what happens is when you fall, and if you don't attempt to break your fall by putting your arm down, your hand down, one of the first major points of contact apparently is your hip. The hip hits the pavement, and that's what can cause a fracture. So I know of one woman out in Indiana, and Indiana was suffering the same horrible, hot, sticky weather that we were suffering here in the Northeast. She was out riding with a group of friends, and they were, I guess, doing some sort of training rides and attacking hills in the hot, sticky weather. And I think they were doing this ahead of some sort of big event that's coming up. But anyway, point being is, they had stopped for a water break, and soon thereafter started going again. And she passed out on the bike, fell over, obviously unconscious already, so she didn't put her hand down to break the fall, and her hip hit first, fractured her pelvis. Unbelievable. The thing that surprised me about that too is a couple things. First of all, the woman who passed out while riding is a very healthy young person. When I say young, I mean probably 30s, maybe late 20s, I'm not quite sure. So, I mean, when I heard her story, boy, I tell you, the alarm bells went off in my head in terms of riding in the heat. Because as I said, it had been hot around here, and I think I've been pushing myself a little bit. And there was a day when I was out riding, but I felt just a little bit of lightheadedness when riding, and I thought, gee, I feel dizzy, and immediately slowed down, backed my pace down, and that sensation fortunately passed very quickly for me. But the point being is, boy, dehydration is really something you don't want to screw around with, and it could lead to a fall like that. So that person has a broken or fractured hip. She'll be off of her bike 6 to 9 months. She has another friend of hers who lives out near her, and she's also someone in remarkably good shape. In fact, she has done Dirty Kanza, Gravel Worlds, and a double century this summer, if you can imagine that. But she reported about 3 weeks ago that her husband, who's a avid cyclist like her, she didn't describe the nature of the accident, but he fell, broke his femur near his hip. Yikes, a femur. It's a big ass bone in your leg, right? So this morning, I'm talking about these injuries because for those of you who are new to road biking like myself, and you're getting high on, you know, the fact that maybe you just bought a brand new bike and you're starting to ride a lot more and you're really getting into the sport. Dear Lord, just keep in mind there are some really inherent dangers to being out on the road doing 30, 35, 40 miles an hour, where the only protection, or actually there is no protection. You have no protection if you fall. You got a helmet, and then you got your bones. And they're gonna break. They're gonna break badly if you fall. So I guess the question then is, well, how do you mitigate that? How do you prevent or cut the risk of getting seriously injured on a bike? Well, you know, obviously be careful. But what does that mean, be careful? Well, you know, don't take any risks. Don't go faster than your capabilities. I guess if you're riding in groups, be very careful of what the other guy is doing.